here. And,
Oh.
welcome, little adventurers, to Session 2 of Curse of Strahd. If anybody would like to do a short recap of last session and earn an inspiration, they are welcome to do so. Otherwise, I will do it myself. And
We all already have an inspiration from last session.
everybody does?
Yes.
I think we can do it between me and Frankie at the very least.
Yeah, if you guys just want to do a recap.
So, I believe it was, we had an Aarakocra, we had a Halfling that was traveling with a bunch of the gypsies, or, yeah.
So merchants, essentially, yeah.
Merchants, okay. So the Halfling was, Julong was traveling with, or was it Rivix?
No. Julong is the bird.
Okay.
Ricky's the half.
Thank you. So Ricky was traveling with a bunch of merchants heading towards the city of Neverwinter. Meanwhile, Julong was traveling up from the South Cloud Peak Mountains to make it on a diplomatic mission towards Neverwinter in hopes of establishing something during Shield Meet, which was a festival that came around this time of year. Frankie made it off of a different kind of mercantile ship. What type of ship was it?
It was a big ship. I know that.
A very large ship of which its origins and purpose is somewhat more shady. Probably closer to being more of a pirate ship than a merchant ship.
Okay.
It was a merchant.
Yeah, merchant. And upon
the blue kraken is what it was called.
And as Julong entered the city, they were greeted by dignitaries or such of the city and told about what to expect around here, and they proceeded.
I don't remember that. I thought Julong just like came down, ate a bone, and then started chasing after people.
Yeah, essentially. He looked for directions because he was supposed to meet Lord Dagalt Neverember for a diplomatic meeting, but he got some directions from some surly guards, and then essentially came across the scene of you guys chasing the child through the city.
Yeah. Before that, my character was heading to a tavern that she had recollections of in the city of Neverwinter, encountering a very suspicious child of which Frankie, the Tabaxi, was being snuffed in the face with her tail thusly. Cats. And basically had some interactions with my character and proceeded to follow my character to the tavern, of which she saw me giving chase and then followed after me. Upon that, Julong saw all the action from up above and also followed us from the aerial viewpoint until we reached the outsides of the city, for which the kid disappeared. And I recalled something about the like gypsy or like traveler merchant garb and saw the encampment further ahead and proceeded to go that. Frankie followed, Julong joined in, met Frankie, and then we all eventually proceeded to the caravan that Ricky was staying at, where a grand seer or the grandpa of somebody in the caravan was telling an ancient story.
He came across as like a fucking shaman.
Yes, the Vistani elder, essentially, of that traveling band, an old, weathered-looking man by the name of Stanimir, who told the tale and spit his wine into the flames, turning them from orange to green. And as he told his tale, shadowy images would appear in the fire as all the Vistani children gathered around to listen. And you all happened into the camp at the time that he began to tell his tale, and when he was done, he addressed you each in turn, like he was actually telling the tale for you all specifically. Um, so you all are now kind of
Oh, don't
s-
forget.
don't forget what.
He fucking asked us to travel to this other world to save their dread lord.
Well, he didn't. I don't think he
Something
said.
like that.
I don't think he said that it was another world, but he did.
Or not.
His final question was, "Will you come and help us?" But essentially, you guys are there is a half circle of 6 colorful caravans. Above you is a dark gray sky where only but a few minutes ago it was bright, sunny, and warm. And as this old man standing here began to weave his tale, and you guys were approaching their caravan camp, these dark clouds began to roll in above. Ricky is standing near the center part of the camp, next to their large bonfire. Among or beside most of the children, there are half a dozen children or so that rushed in under the legs of their Vistani parents to listen to Stanimir tell this old tale. And there's probably 24 or so other adult Vistani, fairly split evenly mixture of male and females of varying ages. So Nice Snow, Nuru, and Julong, you're essentially coming in between. We're coming in between the caravans as Stanimir begin to tell this tale, and his final words, essentially before the session ended last week, where he looked at you each in turn and said, "So, now that you've heard our tale, would you travelers come with us to help our lord?" And he's like clearly looking at each of you.
Nice Snow is looking for the little girl.
Make a perception check for me.
Yeah, because that little girl. Perception check.
No.
So,
You're standing essentially between between a set of 2 caravans, and you can see almost directly across from you on the other side of the tall bonfire. The flames have turned back to their natural color, but it's still a fairly large fire, so the flames are probably licking like 3 or 4 feet up into the air. There's big thick logs that have been built into kind of like a teepee shape essentially, and most of the little children are kind of still staring up at awe at Stanimir as he finishes his tale, and many of the adults have also kind of gathered around behind him. And as he finishes and he looks across the fire at you, most of the adults start to go back to what they were doing. You hear like somebody start to kind of flick like a tambourine in their wrist, and then some of the Vistani begin to start singing a low shanty essentially, and then they begin to sing and drink again. Uh, um, you know, uh, uh, Ricky's standing there. He's got this intricate-looking carved mug in one hand, and one of the Vistani topples over a bottle of wine and just pours a big draft of wine into his mug. And Stanimir comes from around the fire, and you don't notice the little girl anywhere. She doesn't seem to be with the other children that were there listening to the tale.
and so he's still staring at us, asking the question.
He begins to walk around the other side of the fire, coming towards you, all guys coming out through between the caravans, and he gestures for you to follow him as well, Ricky, as he begins walking towards the rest of the 3 of you.
Nuru has a very, very critical expression. He's... What the fuck? I just don't eat that.
And I apologize. I've like been my allergies have been wrecking me all week this week, so I'm pretty exhausted right now, and I'm so stuffed up that I cannot breathe through my nose currently. So I'm gonna be mouth breathing at you guys for the duration of the session.
Use inhalation voice accents.
So
Go.
yeah, so if I do backwards singing like Jack Black. So yeah, if I pause every once in a while, it's because I'm getting dizzy from not being able to breathe. So.
And I
So
might
good.
be up with my cat.
Ricky follows him. Like Ricky's on board.
But yeah, Nuru is kind of like, he's very skeptical. You know, we just randomly walked into this camp. You gave us this whole spiel of shit, and now you want us to help you with literally no indication of why we should?
Yes, Stanimir says, so I see that you made it just in time for my tale. It is one of the children's favorites, and I will admit that it is one of our oldest tales, but there is truth to it. We did come here to seek people to help us.
Was the child meant to lure us here?
He kind of crooks his head and looks at you, and he says, "What child do you mean?"
There's a child that came from a tavern inside of Neverwinter. I came here seeking her.
Well, our children have been allowed to wander into the city. People tend to notice them less than they notice us. They were allowed to go out and enjoy the festival, but as far as I can tell, all of our children have returned for the evening.
The child had an unnatural face.
I just pipe in the and say, "Have you seen yourself lately?"
Yes.
Yeah, you see her deadpan. That she is dead serious about her comment.
Stanimir kind of gives you a crooked look a little bit, and he says, "Well, it is not often that I hear somebody judge a child by their looks. To me, our children are beautiful, so I would not be able to pick one out from that description."
Naru's was like, yeah, she was real cute. Kind of devilish looking for a second, though.
Perhaps you just caught the light wrong.
He says, "Can you tell me a little more about her? I can have her summoned here if you give me a better description."
You know.
And she will repeat her phrase, "All beings should walk free of fear, with the right to live their lives as they wish."
Stanimir says, "That is an interesting but very good point. We Vistani try to live that way ourselves."
Naru's just giving nice snow a look trademarked. It's... Who the fuck are you?
She looks at you, and you just see this smug superiority in her eyes as she looks away. And she's just like, good. And then she will proceed to not look at him anymore and start looking through the children.
Nuru will turn to the man, or whatever, I already forgot his name. She had golden bows in her hair. We'll tell her, we'll say about, this high, with gesturing with the hand.
Yeah, sure. Stanimir kind of tilts his head and he strokes his wispy white beard that kind of comes off in a V off the end of his chin. And he says, "I think I know of the child that you are referring to." And he looks over to a big burly man nearby, actually the man that you bumped into when you first came off your ship, Frankie, and he says, "Can you fetch little Drasha for me? It seems like one of our new friends here has some sort of qualm with her." And he walks away, and you see him go not too far, and then you notice now that she's sitting on the stoop of one of the caravan steps off to the side, next to a young, attractive-looking Vistani woman who looks much like the little girl, who is probably her mother, and he brings Drasha back, and Stanimir pats her on the head, and she looks up at him and smiles, and she says, "Yes, Stanimir, I heard that you wanted to see me. What can I help you with?" And Stanimir says, "Drasha, this woman says that you have agitated her in some way. Do you know this person? Did you encounter them in the city while you were enjoying the festivities?" And she looks up at you, Nice Snow, and Drasha says, "Yes, I passed by her. I was in one of the taverns. I know that we were not supposed to go into any of the taverns, but I was just curious, and I saw her when I came out. And then she made a funny look at me, and I came back here."
And now Nice Snow, seeing the child, leans in towards her, and she's like 6 foot, so she's like towering quite a bit over this kid.
Sure.
And then she utters in a language that I don't think any of you know, Celestial.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
So she repeats the phrase over to the same phrase in Celestial towards the child. And I would like to insight the child to see if there's any like reaction towards it.
She looks up at Stanimir. How loudly do you say the same phrase in Celestial?
Competently enough that at least the child can hear it.
Okay, so you lean down and you kind of whisper something at her face. She looks up at Stanimir, and he's kind of, watching this interaction between the two of you. But then as she looks back up at you as you're leaning down, she kind of like puffs out her chest and raises her chin up high, and she says, "Those are funny words that you just said."
And then she'll do the same again, but this time in Infernal.
I just gotta butt in at this point and just be like, "Are you done badgering the child? You shouldn't be picking on children."
And
he can understand Infernal.
Yeah, it's the same phrase, but in Infernal.
After you say the same phrase again in Infernal, she still like doesn't budge. She's standing there very proudly, and Stanimir puts his hand on her shoulder, and she kind of loosens her posture a little bit. And Stanimir says, "Drasha, how do I say this, is one of our more mischievous children. If she offended you in some way, I'm sure that she would be happy to apologize, but I don't think that she meant you any true harm."
It is not an apology nor harm that I think she could do. It is of the darker nature that I was concerned with. And Nice Snow will take one look at her, and can I perform an insight check on this child?
Sure.
So I'm basically just trying to glean like dark nature or intent.
You don't glean dark nature or intent. You do glean that she's probably done something that she's not supposed to know how to do yet. And she doesn't want Stanimir to find out.
And upon that, Nice Snow will back off. And she'll be like, very well. And she'll turn around and walk away.
Stanimir ruffles Drasha's hair and he says, "Go back to your mother, little one. We will talk about this again later." And he kind of gives her a little knowing glare, and then turns back to the rest of you and he says, "So, the tale that I told, like I said, was one of our oldest stories, but there is truth in it. My people do come from a faraway land, far to the north, and our lord, our baron, he has been beset by a terrible curse, and we have tried everything. We have poured our hearts and souls into curing his sadness, but we have not been able to find the right solution. We are looking for people who could help us, people who are not us, maybe people that could understand his troubles better than we can."
How can we help?
Actually, why should we help?
Well, our Lord is not himself, and he has not been himself for a long time. His sorrow is a sorrow of love, and he stays locked up in his castle all day and all night. Nobody can reach him. Perhaps strangers might be able to talk some sense into him. It has been this way for so long that most of his people now fear him. He has become cruel, ruthless. He's raised the taxes of his lands quite high. Nobody can afford to pay them anymore, and his people are hungry and fearful.
Oh yes, that makes perfect sense. That truly is inspiring me to want to go on this quest.
Does Julong wear anything that would like mark him as a diplomat?
No. He does wear that banner that marks him as a cleric, but that is it. Everything else is
So
nondescript.
Stanimir would notice your banner, I think, and he would say, oftentimes holy people, clerics and paladins, come to mediate these kinds of or investigate these kinds of troubles. All the holy people have fled from our lands. Perhaps all it would take is the touch of a healer to help our Lord break free from his sorrow.
He furrows his brow and thinks about his schedule. I don't think we ever established when the meeting was, did we?
With Dagalt?
Yeah? Like, was it today, or was it some other day, or...
It would probably be the day after Shield meet, so it'd probably be sometime tomorrow.
Ah. I see.
Ricky pipes up and... Go ahead.
Oh, that's it. He just sits there and thinks really hard. You go?
Ricky pipes up and says, "We must help them. They've seeked us out. They've asked for our help. They've begged for our help. How are you heartless? How can you not help them?"
This could kill us. You never know.
Are you afraid of death?
Before our Lord befell his sadness, he was a kind and caring man. He was generous with his people, and he has great riches. I'm sure that whoever it is that would shake him out of his despair, he would reward handsomely for the good that they've done for him.
Naru's gonna insight this.
Sure. As far as you can tell, he's seems to be pretty straightforward the entire time you guys have been speaking. You know, he tried to solve the problem with the kid as quickly as possible, and you don't see, as far as you can tell, why he would be lying about this. You know.
And you do well. Sorry, continue.
Nuru was just gonna ask, can you guarantee this payment?
Stanimir says, I have lived in the Heartvale for most of my life, and I still have friends within our Lord's graces. If you were to succeed, I can guarantee you that that our Lord would certainly reward you. But if not, if you are unable to help him, I would still be able to secure you at least some form of payment. So your travels would not be for nothing.
Okay, I'm in.
And Nice Snow apparently had her head down while he was mentioning all this, and turns around and says, it'll take more than us to alleviate someone's suffering. I agree. And she appears to be resigned into this now. Very big 180 in terms of emotions that you've just seen. It's like she just went from like really intense and angry to completely resigned and compliant.
As soon as you agree to help and your attitude changes, you feel the band around your neck get warmer, and it kind of would probably be imperceptible for anyone else to tell, but it grows a little, the metal grows a little lighter in color. You would be able to tell, certainly, and you feel its grasp around your neck even loosen ever so slightly, like a millimeter, you know?
If I could even see it from my position.
Right,
you know?
yeah, yeah. But you feel it get warm, and you feel it loosen ever so slightly.
And she knows what it is.
Standemir says, or he looks down at you, Ricky, and he says, "And how about you, little halfling? You,
I've already agreed at this point.
You have spoken up, so I take it that you would like to travel with us back to the north and meet our lord."
I would be honored to help.
And then he turns over and looks towards you, Julong, and he says, "I don't believe that any Aarakocra have ever visited the Heartvale. You would be the first of your kind to ever see our glorious forests and our Lord's Keep. You would be making history."
I care not for history, but how long will this take?
He says it will take probably 15 feet.
Okay.
No, I just need to measure.
Yeah, just it's like 15 feet. Well, all right, let's do this.
Let's see.
One slide to the left.
Yeah. 500 miles. Divided by...
Wait, did you answer the question? I feel like my internet cut out.
He says it would take us 10 days to travel to the Heart Vale, where my lord resides. 2 10 days is essentially 20 days. Weeks in this world go by 10 days, so 1 week is 10 days. There are 3 10 days in a month.
I see.
Would we be able to finish our business in Neverwinter before we left?
We intend to head back to our homeland in the morning. You would be able to take care of any business that you have here in the city if you wish, or you are welcome to stay with us at our camp and hear more stories and celebrate the Shield Meat festivals with us out here at the edge of the woods.
I recall one of your people saying that food and drink would be free.
Food and drink will be free from now until your task is either completed or you are unable to succeed. We will provide for you hearty meals and strong ales and wine until your job is done.
That would be acceptable, I suppose.
Some of the Vistani here are the finest cooks that you will ever meet. It is a wonder what they can do with very little ingredients. A rabbit, a little bit of spices, and you have yourself a stew.
Then I believe we shall be very well met.
So, it is only you, Aarakocra, that seems uncertain. What do you say about my offer?
I have an important meeting tomorrow. I am not sure. How important is this meeting? I'm just assuming it's important, but how important is it?
To Lord Dagalt Neverember, it's probably not very important. So it would be how important it is to your character. You know, he's probably got a meeting with 50 people tomorrow, and they're all just names on a list to him.
His feathers kind of deflate a little bit as he furrows his brow a little more. But that man is a busy man. I do not think he will notice if I shirk my duties.
You can be almost certain of that, Birdman.
You require an audience with someone. She looks to the Aarakocra.
Yes, this he squints and then closes his eyes, trying to remember this guy's name. Some fuddy-duddy frou-frou I care not for, if we're to be honest.
Do you know?
We may.
Do you have any information on who this person is?
Out of character, I actually can't remember.
Oh, it's Lord Daggle.
Yeah, Lord Daggle, the essentially the pretender to the throne of the city of Neverwinter. He's trying to take over the city.
Julong finally opens his eyes before he kind of tilts his head and goes, Dagalt, I think it was?
Ah, that bastard. You're not missing out.
He nods enthusiastically.
Nuru gives him a big thumbs up.
Stanimir says, well, I have chatted shortly with this one here, and he points down at Ricky, and so we have become acquainted at least, but I don't know the rest of you. You might have heard from the children that I am Stanimir, and he looks at you, Frankie, and he says, who do I have the pleasure of knowing?
Nuru.
and then he looks over at you, Nice Snow, and he says, "You are an interesting person. I can't say that I've met anyone quite like you in my long life. Who do I have the pleasure of knowing?"
You may refer to me as Nice.
Well, the pleasure is mine, Nice Snow. And he looks over to you, Julong, and he asks the same thing. Well, Aarakocra, you still sound a bit unsure, but still, who do I have the pleasure of knowing?
Julong. And he gives a quick curt bow. I am an ambassador of my particular flock. A veteran to the... What's the word I'm thinking of? The occupation.
Stanimir says, well, that sounds very important, and it sounds like just the kind of person who might be able to help our lord. I'm glad that you all happened upon our camp. Like I said, you are more than welcome to stay with us through the evening, but if you have business in the city, I would suggest getting it done. Otherwise, we will leave in the morning, whether you are here or not. We still have 2 towns to stop through on our way back to our homeland, so if you are not here, we might seek out other adventurers elsewhere, or other travelers elsewhere. But if you are here in the morning, then we will be happy to have you on our travel back to our land.
And as well as that, I say I'm Ricky, and I just down my drink.
Yeah, he didn't ask you because like you had
He
been in
did
the
ask
camp.
me, but I'm introducing myself to the rest of the
Oh,
party.
gotcha, nice.
Nuru looks vaguely impressed.
And then Stanimir,
It's a big mug. It's like the size of my head.
the big
Nuru looks very...
the big guy who you had bumped into coming off the ship hands Stanimir a wineskin, and they like cheers each other, and Stanimir puts his arm around the big guy, and they kind of walk off to the other side of the fire and begin to they find a couple of instruments, and they begin to play along with some of the other Vistani who are playing their music, and they go back to enjoying. The kids are now kind of like darting around through the camp, playing. Looks like they're playing like a game of tag or something. And as they go back to doing their thing, the dark clouds above kind of begin to part and roll away and disperse. Another like fairly strong gust of wind kind of blows through the camp and causes the embers of the fire to flicker and dance, and a kind of a dark pillar of smoke rises up out of it, and then most of the clouds are gone, and it's still kind of like now mid-afternoonish. So if you guys did want to do anything back in the city for the rest of the time before the people leave, if you decide to travel with them tomorrow morning, then you're welcome to get to know each other better, or go back into the city and take care of any business that you might want to take care of there.
Nice Snow will head back to the bear folk.
It's about a mile's walk back into town, or to the outskirts of the New Kalimshan, before you make your way back into Neverwinter. What are the rest of you guys doing as Nice Snow begins to trot back to the city?
I'm sticking around.
Okay, you're gonna stay in the camp.
Mm-hmm.
Rue will mention to the others, I'll be back later, but as for now, I have some he pats the pouch that he has around his waist. Money. I'll see you this night evening.
What about you, Julong?
How long has it been since he ate?
Probably an hour.
More snacks!
You
can
can
go fly back to the fair. Have more
okay,
snacks.
sure. As Stanimir is playing kind of like a very old looking, worn, like cello, essentially. He's got this big instrument between his legs now, and he's kind of sitting on a bench playing like a low bass to the high tune of the ensemble that's going on right now. He yells at you across the fire, Ricky. So you've heard one of my stories. You look like a man who has plenty of stories of his own. Would you like to tell one?
Sure. I'm going to tell him the story of the kind half-orc who gave me a mug,
Sure.
and how they were to take our caravan hostage, but I managed to convince him via a story of his great ancestors of the plains. And he set us free, and he gave me this special mug. And I hoisted up for everyone to see, and then I downed yet another drink.
Stanimir says, that is an interesting story. You seem like a man who has traveled to many places. And that is an interesting mug as well. But might I ask, what makes it so special?
I hand it to him and say, have a sip.
It's pretty clear that everyone around here, besides the children, essentially are on some level of inebriation at this point. Stanimir takes a sip from your mug, and he goes, I have been drinking fine wines and ale for most of my life. It is a tradition of our people. It brings joy, and it makes the telling of stories easier. I know that this wine in this mug is our wine, but I can taste the flavor, but I don't feel the magic when I drink it. That is a special mug indeed, friend. And he takes another swig and swishes it around in his mouth and hands the mug back to you. And you guys,
Okay.
you can tell them what your mug does if you want.
No need.
Okay. So, nice though, you head back to the Bears.
Yep.
You can, when you head back to the docks district, you see there's only maybe 2 bears standing guard on the ships, and they tell you that most of the rest of the clan has gone off to see the jousting and perhaps even enter in some of the competitions, especially the log tossing competition and also the axe throwing as well.
Of course they would.
They're favorites. They're 2 favorites.
Yeah, of course they would. So she'll just head to those as best she can figure out.
Yes, as you head into the portion of the city that has been appropriated for the celebration of Shield Meet, it's fairly well organized. Everything is like very clearly designated, and you find the portion of the city. It's easy to tell. It's the loudest part of the festivities that's going on. You can hear off in the distance as you enter the portion of the city that's here for the festival. You can off in the distance hear the clattering of the snapping of wood as you imagine a joust is splintering off on a knight's chest plate and throwing him from his horse. You can hear the clang of sword as people are dueling in the sword duel ring, and you can hear the steady thunk of axes hitting big rounds of wood, and you follow those sounds in through the festival, and you actually see Bellaril throwing his 3rd axe and it landing dead center in between the other 2 that are in the middle of his target, and most of the bears kind of roar as he lets his final axe go, and you can see that he's clearly beaten all the other contestants with his accuracy, and Bellaril goes up to the other 3 contestants in turn and claps them each on the shoulder, and he says, "Don't feel too bad. It's pretty tough to beat a bear." And then he is given like a small golden, essentially like a small golden trophy. It's been cast into like there's a little pedestal, and it's been like cast into a golden axe that's probably about 6 inches tall.
And she will go over doing a slow clap.
Bellaril notices you, and he says, "Oh, nice though. Come, join us. We are done with our competitions." And he holds up his trophy kind of proudly in front of him, and he says, "We were going to find an inn to celebrate and enjoy the rest of the day."
Celebrate beating humans.
Celebrate being alive.
And she's gonna join them just slowly and basically punches him on the arm.
He laughs, and he wraps a big fuzzy arm around you and squeezes you pretty tightly.
And I know like crumbles like a piece of paper, like ah! And she's like clamoring to push him off.
And as he lets you go, he says, what do you think about the city? It's quite different from our home, no?
I've been here before."
And he says,
And it seems that things are just as complicated as they always are.
he says, "You know, I have known you now 4 years, Nice Snow, ever since I pulled you from that crater. And still you remain a mystery to us. But we understand that everyone has their secrets. But I hope someday you tell us your whole tale."
And she clenches her eyes, like very visibly having some conflicting emotions. And she's like, "I hope that day comes too. But for now, I've come back to say that this will probably be the last drink we have for a long time."
You've gotten pretty good at reading the bearfolk facial expressions. Bellaril's lip kind of curls up and exposes many of his sharp, pearly white teeth, and he says, "Oh, so you intend not to return home with us?"
It seems that where I can do the most good is elsewhere in this place. And I can't ignore this calling.
He says, "Well, we will be sad to see you go. Many of us have grown quite fond of you over these last 4 years, but I knew someday that this time would come, and I just hope you know that you always have a home back in the north. We consider you as one of our own. You are more bear than any bear I know."
And she gives a genuine smile at that, grinning her own like little incisors. She proceeds to take her hand and stroke right where the back of his jaw is, all the way to the front. And he recognizes that as her way of showing that she is happy.
Yeah, and his one of his ears kind of twitches as you show that affection, and he says, "Well, enough of complications and troubles. For the rest of the day, we celebrate. We celebrate being alive. We celebrate the festival, and we celebrate you taking a new path in your life. And let's go have some fun.
And she's like, I think I'll finally try one of those disgusting beverages you always have.
Belaril says, "Come, I know where they make the best mead in the city." And of course, that's what bears drink because they love honey.
Yeah. And she's like, of course.
So Frankie, what is Nuru getting into trouble with?
He's going to look for the merchants of the cities, specifically ones
So,
who
essentially, there are merchants like spilling over the walls of the city during Shield Meet. They come from all around. There are from lowly peddlers to extravagant gem crafters, and so you can find essentially anything you're looking for.
Yeah, he's going to look for someone who's a bit more well off.
Yeah, why don't you give me an investigation check, actually, and tell me like how you're looking for this merchant and like where you're going in the city.
Where would the merchants be like mostly congregated?
Like the established long-term merchants that live in the city would probably be in this portion of the city over here, near the docks district, where many of the temples are, and stuff like that, as well as there would probably be some also up in the nobles district as well, some of the more fancy merchants.
Yeah, I guess he would be looking in probably like in the upper regions of
Yeah.
the city.
And then like any kind of random merchant as well could be found in the portion of the city that's been designated for Shield Meet as well. Those would be merchants that came from other cities or towns.
Yeah, he's looking around like in the upper parts of the city.
Yeah, so you head up to the noble district of the city. As you're,
He's
kind of-
walking out in public, not trying to hide.
yeah,
anything.
meandering through the streets. The people up here are fancily dressed. Many of them are wearing elaborate or fancy costumes. It's definitely a little calmer up here. Like it's more like classy and high end, but it's still very busy in this part of the city. What kind of shop or merchant are you looking for? Like, are you looking for like a gem crafter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Possibly
Yeah.
someone who deals with valuable goods.
You find a as you're wandering through the streets, a sign catches your eye. It's like a plain wooden sign, and it just essentially has a little like gemstone burned into the wood, and underneath it just says rubies, and there's kind of an big open window in the front of the store, and you can see there's like a planter out front that has these kind of beautiful there's like lilies and lavender growing up out of it, and you look inside the shop and you can see like sitting behind a countertop that's like made of this what looks like very fancy looking expensive wood that's been like heavily stained. There looks to be like a gnomish woman sitting on the countertop with like various stones and gems set out in front of her, and she has like a little looking glass and she's like peering at them one by one. They're all set on top of this like blue velvet cloth essentially as you look through the window.
Naru's going to nod to himself once. Like a pretty succinct nod, like, yeah, this is the place I want. And he's going to walk through the shop with a with a charming smile, we'll say.
Sure. as you walk in, there's a little bell above the door that chimes, and the gnome looks up from her gemstones and she says, "Oh, welcome to Ruby's. I'm obviously Ruby. I haven't been getting many visitors during Shield Meet. Everybody's out enjoying the festivities. What can I do for you?"
Well, I was
And
hoping
you
you
can tell
might
she
be.
has like this fiery red hair that's like pulled up in a bun behind her. There's a couple of like essentially like little chopstick looking things that are poked through the big bun. The front of the bridge of her nose has these deep like brown freckles, and she has these bright like emerald colored eyes. And she's like just has like a little also like a little velvet blue apron on that's like matches the blue velvet cloth on the table. Um, and the apron has like the same marking on her sign, like just a little kind of gemstone that like is embroidered on the front in silver with little like exclamation points coming off of it that make it look like it's sparkling a little bit.
But Naru's gonna say I was walking through the city and I couldn't help but notice your shop and how well put together it is. You have a very fine establishment here, I must admit. I came here with a question and I was wondering if you might be able to answer it for me. I have these pearls on me and I was wondering if perhaps you would want to buy them. And he's going to slip 6 pearls out of the pouch around his waist and like hold them out to her in his hand, like so she could see them.
Sure. She says, she kind of like makes a little room on her blue velvet cloth, and she says, she kind of looks down her nose at them, and she says, "Well, I'd like to get a closer look if you wouldn't mind. Why don't you set them down here on the table, so I can examine them more closely?"
He's gonna insight to make sure that she's not going to try to steal them.
Yeah, sure. I can tell you she's not.
You can never be too sure. But this person seems legit.
Where the hell did I... Okay, there we go. Yeah, I mean, she clearly, like, she has her little examining glass out already, and she was already inspecting some gems, and she doesn't, like, even put any of them away, she just kind of moves them aside to make room for your pearls to be set down, so she can take a closer look at them through her looking glass.
All right. He'll give another nod and he'll carefully lay the pearls onto the blue velvet.
Sure. So she kind of leans in and looks through. She closes one of her eyes, and you see her other eye that's open, get all big as she looks through the magnifier of her glass, and she goes, "Ah, oh, very nice." And she goes over each one in turn, and she says, "Well, they all have wonderful shape, and the color is quite good. Where did you get these? These are some of the finest pearls that I've seen in some time. They're quite large as well."
Naru's going to his face is going to look closed off, and he's just gonna glance away for a bit and say, their history is a tough one for me. It brings me sorrow.
She says, well, she kind of leans back and folds her arms in front of her, and she gives you like an appraising look, much like the gems or the pearls, and she says, "Well, you don't survive long around here without running an honest business," and she's going to insight check you. Make a either a deception or I guess a deception or a deception check for me. Just make a deception check for me.
Oh, thank fuck.
She says, "Well, I understand that. If they're tied to a painful memory, I won't pry you too deeply. These pearls are quite fine. Do you know their worth?"
I They were once said to be worth 100 gold each.
She says, yes, they are a bit bigger than your average pearl, but a woman does have to make a profit. I would be willing to pay you 100 gold each for your pearls.
Nuru nods sagely.
Uh, and she says, are you okay with taking that payment in platinum pieces? It travels lighter than gold.
I would prefer gold if you would. Platinum is not as always easy to trade.
She says, very well then. Just give me a moment. And she takes up all the gems that she was examining, essentially. She kind of scoops them up in her little palms, and she hops down off her counter. She's like a foot... the counter's like a foot higher than she is when she hops down onto the to the floor, and you see her like kind of cup the gem she has to her chest, and she reaches her hand up above her head and pulls out a little drawer and reaches up and puts the gem she was looking at in the drawer and closes it, and she takes a little key from around her neck underneath her blouse, and she lifts it up and locks the compartment, and then she goes behind the counter. There's another little door, and she says, I might need a little help lifting it. Come with me. 600 gold is kind of heavy for me on my own. And she leads you into her back room, and back there's just like a little writing desk and like a very narrow little bed. Like, it doesn't look like she lives here, but she probably spends a lot of time here, so she has a place to rest. And then there's some shelves with a few different books on it on one wall, and beneath the shelves there's maybe like a 2 foot tall by 4 foot long metal chest, and she like reaches down in her apron and she pulls out a different key and she unlocks the chest, and she there's like some sacks folded up on one side, and she pulls out one of the sacks and she essentially begins to count out 600 gold coins. And she says, are you sure that I can't convince you to take a little bit of platinum? I'd like to have some gold on hand.
How much gold would I be sacrificing for this platinum?
Well, if I can, I'd like to give you maybe 500 gold and then the rest in platinum.
That would be agreeable.
So she counts out 500 gold, puts it into the sack, ties it up because it's essentially brimming at this point, and sets it off to the side, then counts out 10 platinum, pulls out a smaller little like coin bag, essentially, another like little blue velvet pouch, puts the 10 platinum in there, ties it off with a little bit of cord, and hands that to you. And then she just gestures to the sack of gold, and she says, well, it's been lovely doing business with you. I hope that perhaps letting go of those pearls will help you release some of those bad memories attached to them.
He gives her a very grateful smile. I believe it will. Thank you.
If you come across any more gems as fine as those pearls that you've brought me, I'd be happy to do business with you again. Remember, rubies.
I will. Thank you very much. Here's to hoping we meet again in the future.
And she just kind of like stands there waiting for you to like leave the back room. She closes and locks the chest. You can notice that you cleaned her out of most of her gold that she had on hand, and then she slips the other key into the pocket of her apron, and clambers back up onto the counter and kind of sits there postured, and she says, yes, indeed, do come again. It's been such a pleasure doing business with you. I hope that you enjoy the rest of Shieldmeet as well.
You as well, Ruby. And he's just gonna head on out.
Cool. Julong.
Use the bathroom.
No, go. Yeah, go. If you need to go, go ahead. I can just go
Alright.
back to the others. So, how's Ricky
back-
spending? Oh no, go ahead. Nice no.
Back to nice no drinking. I was making a
yeah,
joke.
yeah.
Nice, no drinking, make a con save.
No. She would immediately like. Actually, I'm not sure how that works.
Well, it's a body, isn't it?
No, yeah. You know what? Let's fast forward to Ricky. Just have like a quick shot, like a one frame of Nice No looking at it disgusted, but still taking it anyways. And then quick slice over to Ricky.
Yeah. Now the since the some of the children, the Vistani children, heard you tell a story at Standimir's request. Now you've got like 5 Vistani children all gathered around you. Most of them are, almost like at eye level with you, and they're kind of tugging on you like, give us more stories, more stories.
Already
We've
demonic.
we've heard all of Standimir's 100 times.
I'm going to tell a tale of I won't say wise, but wise turtle. He was a cleric, and his god was his hammer.
Nice.
Oh,
One of the children says, what color was the turtle's shell?
It was brown.
Another one
It's
says,
actually the portrait I have up. It's not my other cat.
Another one says, why did the turtle pray to a hammer?
He wasn't the brightest turtle. He
Another
heard voices in his head from a deity, and
Another
he
one-
believed it was the hammer.
one like kind of shakes his head and he goes, I didn't like that story.
Well, perhaps I don't like you.
Oh, now who's being addicted to children?
I said perhaps.
The kid sticks his tongue out at you, and they all go like running off, giggling.
Make a perception check. One of them's a demon. Make a perception.
I don't believe any of the children are demons. I'm not messed up like that.
All children are evil. All jokes. All jokes.
Where do you head off with your new? Man, I totally like looked this up the other day. Let's see, how much does a gold coin weigh?
The 500 is £10.
10 pounds? Okay, gotcha.
For 500 gold.
It automatically calculates weight in the sheet.
Yeah.
Oh, for your coins? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Don't you dare make me add more weight. It's already done. It's in there.
Just out
No.
of for curiosity's sake, is anyone encumbered or coming close to it?
no
I
idea.
don't know how you calculate that.
There is like an encumbrance.
Just add yourself like 10,000 gold and you'll see it pop up.
Okay, cool. I'll add the 10,000 silver then. Oh wow, yeah.
But like, yeah, I'll be the first one to reach it and adding. Because I wanted to work out how much it weighed, so I added the 600 gold, and I was still nowhere near it.
Yeah, it's not near it. Or I
Yeah.
don't know if it's near it, but it's not there.
Yeah, I forget the formula for it, but I believe like the average carry capacity is like 150 for like
It's
a person.
based on your strength.
Yeah, for like a person at 10 strength.
Yeah.
Oh,
It'll like tell the sheet will tell you like once you become encumbered. I think it'll say like you are encumbered.
Yeah,
or
it
something.
will.
Yeah.
Cool.
In big like red lettering.
wait.
Yeah.
So my dumbass bird in this other game that has like 2 spears, 2 javelins, some packs, and all that still isn't encumbered.
Some strong wings. That's what I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah, if your bird's got a high strength, then.
He's got those shoulder muscles.
Strength times 15 is your weight limit.
Oh.
Gotcha.
Wait, really? 9 times 15?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, 15, not 5. You dumb.
Yeah.
So 135. Cool, I'm still quite a ways off.
And then your push drag lift is double that.
Push. Okay.
So if you want to like lift something up, but don't necessarily want to like have it in your inventory,
I've never,
because it drops
I've never
to
like,
5 feet.
I've never like enforced encumbrance in a game before, but I'll probably be doing some of those like tedious details in this campaign just because I need to do them sometimes to be familiar with them.
You got to reinforce that this is a gritty reality. Weight is a factor. Emotional weight is a factor.
Two
Sorry.
reasons. One, because people can be loot whores, and like, I loot 800 scimitars. It's like,
Yeah,
no, you
for
don't.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
And the other thing is, I like using the flail snail, and you can take its shell, and it sells for $5,000, but it also weighs like 300 pounds. So it's like, you're not really going to do this.
I'm just gonna say that
That's at the point where the barbarian grabs the shell, puts it on, says, "Can I use this as armor?" Punches holes through.
I had a fighter with 20 strength in that game, so they were able to carry the shell, but they had to take off their armor to do so.
Like eventually you're just like building like toboggans and purchasing like sled dogs to carry all your shit around.
It's actually a really cool enemy because it's like the shell is worth $5,000, or it turns into like 3 different magical items. So it's like a good way up.
I'll have to check that out. Snail.
Autoluke's brilliant caravan hauler. Just tumbles across the land, dragging all your stuff with it.
Are you back, Julong?
Gosh, I forgot to turn my mic back on.
No worries.
So I wandered off to grab snacks, didn't I?
Yep.
Wait, I should first alert that guy, what's his name? The important guy, that I have to postpone the meeting.
Yeah, sure. So you want to go try and inform somebody that you will have to like cancel your audience with the leader of the city?
Sounds about right. That's at the town hall, right?
You'd probably have to head to the keep. There would probably be a couple of different places that you could do it if you knew where you were going, but like the most logical place for you would probably be to check the keep that overlooks like the port, which is here.
Wait. Oh, there. Okay. So I'm gonna go there.
Cool. So as you do you just fly? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
You're wearing light armor, right? Like you're not wearing medium or heavy.
Light armor.
Okay, cool. So you take off from the caravan and make your way back towards Neverwinter. You know, as you're flying over the city, you see there. Now that it's past like the afternoon, the sun, you know, is past its highest point in the sky, and the day's warmed up quite a bit, and you can see people are definitely enjoying themselves far down below you. And as you get closer to the castle, why don't you make a perception check for me?
Remind me again how I do that?
Just open your character sheet and click on the perception skill, and it'll automatically roll it for you.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Now we wait for my terrible internet.
You don't ever cut out or anything for me, so that's good. Like, it doesn't sound like you have terrible internet, at least, you know?
Oh, I do. I'm doing everything in my power to not have terrible internet, but it does that anyway. Still loading.
It's kind of hilarious that you're the one with terrible internet and I'm in Australia.
I can just if it's taking forever too, I can just roll it for you too if you want.
Still loading.
Yeah.
You can go ahead. I don't think it'll load anytime soon.
Okay. So as you get closer to the keep, you notice on the it looks like there are guards on the battlements, kind of patrolling back and forth. And as they see you approach, you can actually see them lift up these hefty-looking crossbows as you're flying towards the castle and like point them at you as you're like flying towards the keep.
Ooh.
You're still probably maybe a couple 100 feet off, but it's clear that they're essentially, you can tell they're making it clear to you that this is not how you approach the Lord's castle, you know?
Begrudgingly, I will land and walk
Ugh, horrible.
like a normal person. Oh.
How dare you? This is D&D. You should barge in the gates and kill
And there.
everything.
There are crossbows.
So as they see you land, you know, they lower their bows or they lower their crossbows and they just go back to patrolling. And as you make your way around the loop of the outer portion of the castle, you finally come to where the main gates are, and the large metal portcullis is totally risen. There are two guards standing on either side of the gate. You know, nobody's really coming in or out from the grounds, but for the celebration of Shield Meet, you know, Lord Dagalt is trying to make it seem like he's an open lord, an accessible person, wants everyone to feel like they're welcome in his city, so his gates are open, and it's still on pretty heavy guard though, and the two guards standing out front are wearing you know, these big, or not big, but they're wearing chainmail shirts essentially. They have leather trousers and big pikes, and they're wearing these blue tabards with silver gauntlets emblazoned on the front of them. One of them is a average female of like average height with dark brown hair. As you are walking up closer, she says, how can we help you? Are you enjoying the festivities? Do you have a question? Where can I direct you? And these are obviously much nicer guards than the other ones that you encountered before.
Oh. Remind me again what that guy's name is. I need to write it down. This is important.
Dagalt,
Just
Lord
that's the
Dagalt,
open
never
lord.
Ember. Yeah, the open lord.
So wait, what?
His name is Dagalt.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or Lord Dagalt. Or Lord Never Ember. Probably best if you use Lord, though.
Just Lord.
Lord's fine as well.
My lord.
So, wait, shoot. This is what kind of property again? Duh. I need to write this stuff down.
It's just the gates essentially to the
Like,
keep,
would I call
to
it
the
a keep or
Yeah,
an estate or what?
A keep, yeah. You're at the Lord's keep,
Yeah.
and this guard is asking you what your business is or if she can help you in any way, because you've just kind of wandered up to the front gates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He threads his... Not really fingers. What are they? I guess they're fingers. He threads his fingers together and, smiles as best as he can at the beak and goes, I'm a diplomat who had a meeting with the lord of this keep, Dagalt, I believe it was. Unfortunately, I will have to postpone it. Something has come up,
She
and I cannot
says.
attend.
She says. Well, that is quite unfortunate. Um, what is your name? I can give that message to the appropriate party, and they will mark it down.
Ah, Julong. I believe that I told them the name, my family name though, which would be Leroy.
She says, very well, our Lord thanks you for your consideration in informing us that you will not be able to attend your engagement with him. And we do hope that you enjoy the rest of the festivities.
Indeed, I will. He nods, and spins on his heel, and walks off like a normal person.
Just fly like an inch above the ground.
Hmm?
Wait,
what?
So did anybody have anything else that they wanted to do for the rest of the day, or do you just want me to fast forward a little bit
Nuru heads back to the
caravan?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, so by the time you get there, it's now pushing into like a little bit in the later portions of the afternoon. You know, it took you a while to walk into the city, make your trade, and then make your way all. So a couple hours have probably passed, and it's getting later in the day. You return to the Vistani, still essentially in a 24-person rotation on various instruments, and they party pretty hard throughout the entire day. They have a lot of energy, and even Stanimir, the oldest of them, never really seems to tire. So when you return, they're still just in full force party mode. You notice Ricky keeping on pace with how much that they're drinking, and seems to be handling his liquor quite well for a small folk. And
Naru's gonna head over to Ricky and be like, I have spent my life surrounded by drunks, but you, my friend, are what?
in a league
I
of
am
your
no
own.
drunk.
Hmm?
I am no drunk. I just like the taste.
I'm not saying I'm actually. My point was that you are not drunk.
Quite.
But you.
Little air quotes. I can't.
Why does
How bottomless is this little man?
it's all just due to my lucky mug that a kind half-orc gave me.
Would Nuru be able to understand? Can he read between the lines of lucky mug? Means it's.
I mean, you can make an intelligence check, but I mean, probably not. There's not a whole lot to glean off that. It's
I'm intelligent. Oh.
he might be yeah. It's a lucky mug. What more can he say? You know.
Naru's gonna nod as though he understands. Ah, I see. Doesn't see.
Use your inspiration, ring roll it.
Nah, it's better this way.
Swing for the fences. Swing for the fences.
You probably still have a half bottle of fine wine that you purchased in your satchel, but the Vistani are also supplying plenty of
Giving it out.
different kinds of they have essentially in one of the wagons, the back part of it's been opened essentially, and the back has been kind of the lip of it's been folded down, and there's a big old looking barrel of and kind of like in faded lettering, stamped on the barrel, it says Wizard of Wine's Winery, and underneath it says Red Dragon Crush, and then like the vintage year has kind of faded to the point where you can't really tell what the year says.
Yeah, he's going. Nuru will look at that for a bit, take it in, probably grab the nearest meat-based food, pull out his own wine, and seat himself next to Ricky.
Yeah, they've at this point they've kind of expanded the bonfire pit a little bit, and they've made many of the big logs that were in there a few hours ago have burned down, and now there's kind of like a smoldering pit there, and they've brought out a big spit, and they've begun roasting a large pig over the bonfire for dinner, essentially. Probably won't be ready for another couple of hours, but it's definitely cooking. You can smell that meat, probably even before you reach the camp. And then there are a couple other smaller casks of different kinds of ales or alcoholic beverages of different sorts in the booze wagon, essentially.
Are there like any, not really meal size, but just like snack?
Yeah, they have like a healthy supply of other kind of like dried and cured meats and cheeses and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, like that's what Nuru's probably gonna go for.
They've probably restocked on their supply from the festival. They probably sent some Vistani in there to purchase some new traveling provisions, and so it's all probably still very fresh from the day. I think they've probably even picked up some like fish fillets and stuff like that as well, or like fish jerky, essentially.
He is sick of fish at this point. He's had nothing to eat but fish for the past 3 weeks.
Yep.
Ricky is waiting for the red meat.
Yeah, Nuru will grab some snacks, meander over to this somehow not drunk halfling.
Yeah, they even have like there's a couple of actually live chickens and roosters that are like clucking around the camp as well, like that probably travel with the Vistani and like produce eggs and stuff.
Would I be able to touch one of the chickens?
Yeah, for sure.
I cast light on it.
Cast light on one of the chickens.
Yes.
The Vistani think that is hilarious. And then they all start like improvising a song about the chicken of the sun, essentially, Stanimir.
The chicken of the sun, it did run and glow all day long.
Yeah.
When it crowed, it became the sun.
They make up a whole song about the enlightened chicken, yes.
That's okay. We'll write this down.
Nuru is going to give him an incredulous look, and so give Ricky an incredulous look, and then say, "So, what are your weaknesses?"
What do you mean? What are my weaknesses? That's a strange question to ask.
We're going to be traveling.
I have difficulty reaching high heights.
I mean, we're going to be traveling with each other. I may as well know what you are and are not good at.
I am a scholar. I come from a great library. I'm okay with a quick spell, but I wouldn't say I'm the strongest in a fight.
Oh, okay.
What about yourself?
I'm pretty good at sneaking around. Perhaps not the strongest, but I know how to land some blows.
Well, by all means, I can sneak. I mean, look at the size of me.
Yeah, and then like Nuru will say, like, I have these, and like unsheath his claws and bare his teeth. Not in a menacing way or anything, but more so.
You do notice Ricky when Nuru returns that she has more bags than she left the camp with.
I just tilt my head and say, I see your time in the city was productive.
Quite so.
Yeah, and now you kind of jingle as you walk, Nuru.
So much for stealth.
Naru's gonna frown. He's going to frown if he notices, or when he notices the jingling.
I'd say I notice. I don't necessarily care.
Naru's going to maybe ask around to see if anybody has spare fabric scrap of sorts, or stuffing of any kind.
Yeah, one of the Vistani women says we carry spare dresses and clothing and cloths. We do a lot of our own mending of our wardrobes. And what do you need, and how can I help you?
I need some scraps in order to muffle the sound.
Yeah, she says, let me fetch some for you, and she runs off to one of the wagons and comes back with some various spare bits of different colored cloth, and most of it's cotton, essentially, kind of a thick cotton. She brings a bit of a thick patch of wool as well.
So how noticeable was the jingling?
I mean, think of when you have a pocket full of coins times 600 or whatever.
I'm going to attempt to inspire the group to sing a rousing rendition of Jingle Cat. Jingle Cat, Jingle Cat.
Purses making noise.
They do. As soon as you start off the song, the Vistani begin to chime in drunkenly with their own contributions. It's essentially that game. It's essentially that game where you whisper something into someone's ear, and then the next person whispers it, but out loud.
Nuru will throw a dagger at Ricky, not aiming to hit him, but he will throw a dagger at him. Near him, I should say.
Make an attack roll.
Come on, natural one. Come on. I want that to be a ball shot. Oh.
I would say, I mean, that would hit him, essentially. So I would say instead make a dexterity check to throw your dagger to intentionally miss him. Make a dexterity check instead. So
I am impaled.
Ricky, you're standing there and you start this Jingle Cat this jolly Jingle Cat tune that the Vistani instantly pick up and begin to contribute with. And as you look around as they're making up the song, you feel a sharp pain suddenly in your foot, and you look down and there is a knife sticking out of your boot, essentially, and you can feel blood now pooling inside of your shoe. And you look up and you probably see Nuru standing there with a horrified look on his face.
I'm waiting for the damage roll.
You just take one. You just take one damage. Yeah, you just take one damage.
Now the real question is, do you milk this or not?
It doesn't.
I pull the dagger out, put it on my belt, say thank you, and then I cast Cure Wounds on myself.
Nuru doesn't look horrified, by the way. He looks mildly upset, but mostly angry.
And you probably think to yourself, Nuru, that maybe this halfling has less weaknesses than he appears to have.
Also, you're down a dagger.
It's okay. He has extras.
And we're essentially we're pretty much halfway through. Let's see, we're an hour and a half in, so we're essentially halfway through the session now. So let's take a quick 5-minute break, get up and get a drink and stretch or do what you need to do, and then we'll come back and for the second half of the session.
pull over to the intermission credits of just Hemdriel just like sacked out somewhere with alcohol poured out behind her. And
My gosh, I keep muting myself and forgetting to unmute.
Alright.
We're only halfway through.
yeah.
Real quick, an offhand dagger, that you still get your dex for your attack, but not for the damage. Is that correct?
I mean,
For an offhand attack.
you would. Oh, for an offhand attack, yeah, you get. You don't get your dex bonus. Yeah.
For the damage, but you
For
still
the
get it for the attack
for
roll.
the damage. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I can't believe you rolled on that one.
Yeah, why are you attacking party members already? Jeez.
It was very much worth it and deserved.
My dagger now.
Jingle cat, jingle.
It was great.
Oh no, it was beautiful.
You had a ballad written about you.
What do you think, Queenie? Did Ricky deserve it? She doesn't give a single shit. Well, he won't be a jingle cat for long.
Ryan, are you there?
Ryan left us.
Rip the dream.
Well, the DM's away, the player shall play.
Well,
Can I roll to execute a perfect dab?
yeah.
Yes.
How low is your dex that you need to roll to dab?
I say that you roll with advantage.
Yeah.
Nat 1, you slap yourself in the face.
2 nat 1s, you dab, but in the wrong direction.
Can you dab in the wrong
Aw, I only rolled
Yeah.
a 7.
No. I'd say that you.
Mediocre dab.
I would say that you dab, but your arm is like way too low, so you just like.
I'm assuming no one here knows who Lassus is.
Nah.
He literally dabs by slapping himself in the face while he does it.
That's more amusing.
Yes. Like, is a streamer and just like when he does something entertaining on stream, he just like dabs 12 times in a row, slapping himself in the face each time.
I could see a dab where somebody smacks himself in the head, like a face palms dab, just like. I don't know. I'm feeling too white talking about this. Da-da. So yeah, for reference, Nice Snow is going to be sacking out with the bear folk and attempting to wake up on time.
Also, for reference, Ricky will be watching Nice Snow very carefully around children.
Ricky should be watching
Very
this around children.
So the
And
one
probably
person, so the one person that was being addicted to children is going to watch the other one that was being addicted to children.
I wasn't being a dick to children.
Yes, you would.
Ah, that children was a dick. It's different.
Oh, there she goes.
Takes one to know one sort of deal.
Yeah.
Alright, come on, Queenie.
So when I change the maps, Mark, do those load
Hmm?
really slow for you as well?
I mean, like, they load, but like they come in blurry, and then like they slowly get more clear and clear.
That's what it does for me as well.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
As long as they eventually like load all the way, because
Yeah. Eventually they get clearer, but
it'll probably get worse on like the dynamic lighting maps. Just
Yes.
oh
as a heads
no.
up, yeah. But
Well,
This is
also,
what you get for living on islands.
after our first combat, are we all level like 12 now?
um, you are not level 12, but when you wake up in the morning, you are level 3.
Wait, so all of our characters are level 3 now?
Yep.
Oh boy.
Hiya!
It's gonna take so much.
Oh, I have not updated that on my sheet at all.
Yeah, this is gonna be.
The
Let
sheet
me-
still says level 1.
Panic! Start panicking!
Is
Uh,
it sufficiently muffled?
Well,
Can I re-roll to do my perfect dab?
re-roll to do your perfect dab.
No, you got a 7.
Oh, I made a joke earlier.
Oh.
Roll for your
Put the
perfect
DMs
dab.
away.
Okay, so I get my Eldritch Invocations pack. Okay.
My perfect
I'm
dab
done.
is a
I'm assuming I'm still the tankiest in the group.
What do you do, Julong, after you inform the guards at Neverkeep that you won't be
I'm
attending
gonna stock up on snacks.
Nice. So you
Stuff
essentially
that I
go.
can like put in a bag without like getting it mostly all dirty.
How much snacks are you going to buy, and what type of snacks?
Probably something like I don't know, jerky of some sort.
Okay. How many days worth, essentially?
Uh, hmm. Remind me again, those fellas have food on the caravan, right?
They do, yeah. They have all kinds of food, and they'll be feeding you whenever you feel the need.
Food for how much, though?
I mean, they're essentially have a endless supply. You don't know right now, but they're like essentially cooking a huge pig. I mean, there'll be pig bones, and every night they'll probably have a large meal. You know, they have 24 people, 24 adults, and 6 or 7 children in their caravans total. So they have to feed a lot of people every day. You know, every time they stop, some of the Vistani probably go out trapping or hunting. The forests and surrounding areas outside of the cities are pretty plentiful of game. So they're not too worried about getting everyone fed. It seems like, at least. But if you want to, like, if you're worried about it and want to, like, have a Julong private stash, you know.
Yeah.
I just want to know how much, essentially, after, like, a certain amount, I'll, charge you. Past the point of negligible, it'll cost you a little bit of coin.
Yeah. Probably like 3 days worth of snacks.
Okay. So, just 2, 4, 6, 8, 8 silver for 3 days of snacks. Purchasing from various vendors, in the city, gathering all your favorite snacks. It ends up costing you about 8 silver.
How much again?
8 silver.
Oh, okay. I'll keep in mind to deduct that later.
Sure. I can even just do it for you real quick. Let's see.
Oh.
you don't have any gold amounts entered in your character sheet that you have, so you would come with like however much gold your background gives you.
I forgot.
It's 15.
Which background was it?
Courtier.
If it's 15, it's 15.
15. So you're down to 14 gold and 2 silver.
Nice.
And you can work on your leveling up, you know, at your leisure.
Yeah.
It shouldn't
We
be...
still have to do our session 0.
Yeah, we will. I've just been like very, very busy in my personal life, so I haven't had a ton of time. I still didn't even prep for this session at all, so...
Oh my god.
Pro GM tactics.
Oh.
No, my immersion.
Galaxy brain. Nothing.
I know.
Instead of prepping, he sat up with me for like 4 hours last night talking bullshit.
I'm not supposed to reveal my secrets.
Review secrets if you don't have any.
But man, yeah, I've just been so busy lately with just random real life bullshit. But eventually, Julong, you do get all the snacks that you feel like you're comfortable with lasting a few days, just in case the Vistani don't come through on their word of providing food for a hungry bird. And
Ooh.
and then what do you do once you're loaded up on snacks?
Not sure. I guess we'll just walk around and see what kind of nonsense is going on.
There's all kind of nonsense, so if you're looking for a specific kind of nonsense, otherwise, just kind of, I guess I can just go back to the city map, and by the time I'm done describing everything, maybe it'll be loaded for you. As you're like kind of in the central portion of the area of the city where most of Shieldmead is taking place, is you know that on this map there's this big crevice tearing through the center. Like that's not actually there. It's like all been filled in and covered up, and it's essentially a big dust pit for the most part. But where that crack is, essentially in the central portion, there are just stalls of vendors. You know, kind of. It's kind of like if you've gone to like a Sunday market or something. You know, there's people like selling flowers, and that's where you pick up most of your snacks, and you know, all kinds of people like local crafts, you know, people like who have woven like beaded bracelets and necklaces, and there's stalls with people who have carved stuff out of wood. You know, there are different blacksmiths that have come and set up stalls with their wares of different kinds of weaponry, or like even just simpler stuff like horseshoes. Like there's all kinds of stuff in the bazaar, essentially, through the center portion of Shieldmead, and then on the outskirts around the central portion, you know, as you go up to like the top left corner of where Shieldmead's happening, that's where all the contests are taking place, where the bear won his golden trophy for the axe throwing, and where the joust has been happening for most of the day now, which they're probably in like the finals of. The joust is essentially what they finish with. It's the most prestigious competition, so you know, knights of all different renown come and enter every 4 years for Shieldmead. Like the joust is a pretty big deal. So towards the end of the day, the joust is probably where a lot of people have ended up congregating, and the crowd there is probably very dense for the last couple jousting bouts. If you were to meander over there, you would probably see, you know, a massive man, kind of like the size of the mountain in Game of Thrones, on a big black war steed with this like flowing white mane. You can see that like the horse's flanks are just like drenched from riding hard all day in the sun, and now being at the end of the competition, you know, as he's coming to one end of the stockade where the joust is happening, there's actually on the other end this very slender knight who's wearing a fancy, like bright silver suit of armor, and it's got several dents in the breastplate where he's been struck uh, um, throughout the day, and uh, he's like half the size of the big black-looking knight. Um, he doesn't have his helmet on right now, and you can see as he's like approaching for the one of the final rounds, the crowd kind of goes wild. Nobody was really expecting this. This knight was obviously probably some sort of underdog. He's got like a very uh, like a fast-looking pony almost. It's all white with like gray spots running down its sides. This horse also looks very tired, much like the other one though. And as the horse kind of canters up to his side of the arena. The crowd cheers, and he's got his helmet under his arm, and he raises it up over his head, and the crowd cheers again, and he places it down over and locks it into place, and two retainers essentially run up and hand them each a jousting lance, and the crowd falls like very silent. The only thing that you can really hear is like the clopping of the horse's hooves on the hard ground as and what one of the large war horse kind of whinnies a little, and you can hear him getting ready to charge, and the larger knight pulls the reins in of his horse tight, and the horse kind of follows the control of the big knight, and then they dash at each other. Somebody in the center between them waves a big royal blue flag, and the knights kind of begin to gallop with ferocity towards each other. And the right as they're about to clash, the smaller knight twists his shoulder and dips down a little bit, and then brings his lance up square in the belly of the larger knight, and the large knight is knocked back, loses grip on his reins, and topples over one side of the rail that splits the jousting arena, and the crowd just goes nuts. And when the smaller knight gets to the other end of the joust on his horse, he undoes his helm, tosses his lance to one side, lets his helm fall to the dusty ground, and raises one of his hands up in a victorious fist. The larger knight angrily gets up, slams his fist on the rail. His horse kind of looks almost like it's gonna dart off, but then he grabs the big warhorse's reins and stomps off of the grounds. And then you keep wandering on. You make it to another far end, and now it seems like there is a smaller gathering. The jousting is now like the main focus of everyone's attention, but there's still a pretty big crowd on the far end, on the other corner of the shield meet, where there now seems to be some sort of very elaborate play going on about some lover's tragedy. Very elaborate costume work, and all the actors are done up heavily in makeup, and you can tell most of them look to be men. Even the people that are playing the female parts, you can clearly tell that they're men as well, for the most part. The scene you walk up upon is two men in a sword duel, essentially, and one of them falls to his knees, and the other one pretends to jam his practice sword into the man's gullet, and the crowd kind of gasps, it's winding down for the most part. All the events are kind of coming to their fruition or end, and as people are kind of making their way even now out of this portion of the city for the evening into the more central parts of the city to find their taverns or inns that they're going to crash in for the night. Even a large portion are spilling out into New Calamshan, just because the city can't house all the people that are here, so they even have to find places just to sleep outside of the city.
Oh my gosh.
But that's kind of what you experience, still kind of taking in the festival itself after you gather your snacks.
Snacks.
Oh.
Nice. Now, why don't you make a Constitution saving throw for me?
Oh yeah. let's do this, boy. Come on, natural one. Come on.
That's it.
Oh,
7.
not that bad. Still fail, but
Now for the second sip.
I'm willing to do it a second time. Let's go.
So essentially, you wake up in the morning, in a booth inside of an inn. As you wake up, you groggily open your eyes and you can see a few big bears also kind of snoring loudly beside you.
Oh my head.
Uh,
Why do they snore so loud?
Bellaril is
Oh.
like essentially laying on his back on the inn floor, and it's either that the innkeeper didn't find it prudent to try to have them moved, or simply they were too heavy to do so. But you were all kind of left alone for the evening and allowed to just sleep in your little nook in the inn that Bellarel brought you to with the best mead in the city. And
Heavens, horns! Why are they so loud?
then you kind of realize that it's getting pretty light outside.
Well, she's gonna get the hell out of there in terms of their snoring, because she now has a headache that is killing her. And she's gonna like stumble out of there very ungracefully, still wearing her armor. Then she's going to realize something. She has a Bible in her hand. She looks at it and she's like, and she opens it and she recognizes the language as Celestial. And she's like, show-offs. And closes it and just puts it back on her belt and will continue walking out. And is going to do her best to avoid large crowds because it's just sheer noise, and is going to make her way outside the city to meet up with the Gastani.
Sure. You did still manage to get up. I mean, you feel like you get the sense that you might be cutting it a little close, but it's still early enough to where, that it's the day after Shield meet now, so, there are custodial people of the city essentially doing a lot of cleanup. There aren't really many large crowds. The people that you do see are kind of like you, stumbling out of inns, looking hungover, and you make your way back to the Vistani caravans, where Nuru and Ricky, you guys had a pretty good feast the previous night. The Vistani sure know how to roast a pig, and I don't know if maybe even Julong eventually showed back up before
Probably, yeah.
nightfall. Yeah, so you enjoy a meal with the Vistani as well. While you guys were all having dinner together, essentially, the music stops and people gather around the bonfire. They put more logs on it again to bring up the flames and create more warmth for the rest of the night. If you wanted to, the Vistani spend a little time, as you guys are all kind of gathered around. One of the kids who's sitting nearby looks up at you, Nuru, and he says, I haven't seen anyone like you before. Where are you from?
Nuru looks. He looks down at the kid, actually, pretty kindly, considering past
He's
At
like
least compared to
he's pretty tan. You know, he's got like a tuft of like wild blonde hair on the top of his head. Um, you know, he's dressed much like the rest of the Vistani in this strange attire that seems like it's from another time. You know, he's got a little blue vest on that's not really embroidered or anything. It's just kind of this royal blue, and you know, a pair of little brown trousers, and you know, the vest doesn't have like a shirt underneath it. You know, he's kind of bare skinned underneath, so his kind of arms are exposed, and he just looks up at you, you know, very curiously.
Nuru will like sit or crouch down so they're close to the same height. They're sort of like on equal level height wise or whatever, and he'll tell him that I came from Kalishin.
Where's that? Where's that?
sounds
He looks up at Stanimir, and he looks back up at you and says, where is that? I have never heard of that place.
It's 3 weeks down south if you travel by boat.
Yeah,
It's a
couple
one of the
thousand
biggest-
miles.
It's one of the biggest cities in the world.
Wow. This city's pretty big. Is it as big as this city?
Is it?
Kalimport is far bigger than Neverwinter.
Kalimport.
Yeah. Maybe 4 times the size.
It is many times bigger.
Wow. I've never seen something that big. And then you feel like a tug behind you on your tail, and you look back, and another one of the Vistani children, a little girl, actually the same little girl that Nice Snow had his encounter with, she's grinning at you, and she says, "Nice tail."
Thank you. It's quite soft, isn't it?
Yep. And
And
then
he,
she kind of like squeezes in right next to you, and you can like feel her warm little body slide in on the bench beside you. She like has one of her hands behind her back, and she puts it out in front of her, and there's like a bright red apple in it, and she says, "You still hungry?"
Very much so. And this
And
looks like
she
the
like
perfect
holds it out to you.
Thank you, young miss. He'll take it and take a generous bite.
And you don't have to make any saving throws or anything. It tastes like an apple.
Wasn't
Then Stanimir looks over at you, Ricky, and he says, "You seem to be quite knowledgeable, more so than many of the people that I meet on the roads. You know, we tend to interact with a lot of commoners and merchants, and you seem to have a spark in your eye that is well above those of the average man. Did you study formally somewhere?"
Yes, I spent all of my life in a great library learning. I've only recently left the library, in fact, only 6 months back, to come visit Shieldmeet.
The festival is quite a sight. I don't make it every year, but I have been before. What was the name of your library?
The Arcoon Library.
Arcoon. I can't say that I recognize that name.
It's mostly a halfling. It's in a halfling village, so we get very few outsiders venturing towards us.
I never knew Halfling to be so studious in my experiences.
We're not. Very few of us ever get selected to enter the library.
Well, you certainly stand out amongst your kind.
Thank you.
And then when you return, Julong, and settle in, you know, a few of the Vistani offer you a large plate of food, a big, essentially a large portion of pig rib.
I was going to say, is it just the boar carcass?
Yeah. Uh, um, there's plenty of thick bone underneath, but there's also a lot of juicy meat around it as well. And once you settle in, Stanimir looks over to you and he says, uh, "You mentioned quite casually that you are a diplomat of sorts. Um, what kind of situations do you normally mediate?"
I never thought about that. Oh my gosh.
Just make it up, man. That's what I'm
Yeah,
doing.
I mean, considering his connection to agriculture, it's probably like land disputes and stuff.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Stanimir says, "Well, I know that a man can become very attached to his lands, and those can be difficult situations when two farmers or two families um, argue about which tree is theirs on whose property, um, and your goat's fence is sticking too far onto my land. Um, even the Vistani, before we came wanderers, had those troubles back in the old days of our people. Um, it is good to have people like you that can solve problems peacefully for others, and I'm quite optimistic that you will be able to help our lord."
He nods enthusiastically, and also I'm not sure when he started doing this.
Big plate of pig flesh in front of you with some hefty bone underneath, and you can just eat the snacks that you picked up in the city if you want as well. Um, and Stanimir says, "Well, I feel fortunate that you have all stumbled into our camp. Um, I think that we are very lucky to have you, and that you have accepted to come on this journey with us back to our homeland, and I feel more hopeful than I have in a long time that somebody might be able to help our lord. So, enjoy your food, enjoy the song and drink, and tomorrow we will set off on our travels. And hopefully, soon, my people can rest peacefully knowing that our Lord has been cured of his sorrows." And he
Am I able to roll insight on the fact that he said rest peacefully? Because that's a bit odd choice of word.
Sure.
Just essentially trying to see if like he meant anything by that, or if it was just a mistermed word. That's a shit roll, so I ignore it.
I mean, a lot of the way that the Vistani speak seems a little odd. The words that they use and the order that they put them in sometimes is just very unusual for the more modern way people speak now. They're the it's doesn't seem unusual. It just seems in line with the way that they speak in general.
Okay.
Yeah. And eventually, they even offer you some very posh like bedrolls, essentially, if you want them, if you don't have your own camping equipment or whatever. And
I'm assuming mine's like a basket.
yeah, they set up a little like halfling sized dog bed for you, you know. Um, uh,
I circle 3 times before I lay down.
big fluffy velvet pillows and stuff like that. Although
Nuru sticks
they're comfortable, but they seem very like have you ever had like a very old pillow that just like when you put your head on it, like a crater just develops in the center, and all the
Yeah.
stuffing around kind of like wraps up around your face, like all
Those are the
all their
worst.
cushions are kind of like that, you know. Um, and you guys have a fairly, I mean, I don't know how your characters would feel about sleeping in a camp of weird strangers, but otherwise, if you feel
I'm
comfortable,
all
then
for it.
you have a fairly reasonable sleep with a full belly and of roasted pig and wine, and um, you you wake up to the sound of the Vistani packing up their caravans in the morning.
Question.
Sure.
Would the kids try to get Nuru to sleep near them? Because he would definitely entertain them if they kept on asking him questions.
I don't know. I don't know if they would try to get you to sleep near them, but they might ask like their parents if they could sleep near you, especially the ones that are more curious about you. Yeah. And
You
so
wake up, one's just curled up on you.
yeah, like they like the little blonde boy would be like, can't I just stay up a little longer and talk to the cat mom? Like that kind of thing. And they would be very interested in hearing stories about Kalimport and the largest city in the world. Um, did you want to like tell them a story about your home city or anything?
Yeah. He's gonna play it up a lot. Back in my home city, there is a great war. A war of good versus evil. There are people who live on the upper parts who wish to control those below. They treat them poorly. They leave them little food, little warmth, little housing. And how long has the war been going on? Or I guess basically a civil war.
20 years.
For 20 years, people have fought. Brave folk. My family was one of those. My family was one of those brave. And we have lived in this fighting to keep ourselves free. Or I get something along those lines.
Yeah.
Told better than the shit I'm pulling out of my ass right now.
So there's probably like 3 or 4 of the kids that have stuck around to interact with you, and one of them is the little girl that you and Isto ran into the city, and she says, how do you know who is good and who is evil? How is it for you to judge that?
Well, it's different for everyone. For me, the ones that we were fighting against are evil because they tried to take away freedom. And would any good person try to take away your freedom?
I guess not.
So that's how I see it.
We Vistani are free. We've always been free. And Stanimir says we will always be free.
I hope that you are.
Well, I hope you tell us more stories about your home.
Perhaps I will. But not all of them are.
Well, some of Stanimir's stories are not happy either. So, that's okay. We like all stories.
Perhaps I'll tell you stories of my mother. Those are mostly.
She says, I would like to hear about your mother, but my mother's probably waiting for me now. It's getting dark. I better go back to my cart. And she scampers off. And the blonde boy is like, I better go home too. Or I better go back to my cart too. My mother gets very mad when I come home late. And they talk about their caravans like they're their homes, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
like they're a solid foundation that's always there. And the other kids kind of mope off as well.
Nuru will gently push them off.
Yeah.
It's like, go Go on to your parents now.
Yeah, you're all kind of sitting on this very large.
Then he throws a dagger at them.
Yeah.
Surprise, kids!
Nuru is nice to kid.
I'm a
He
kid.
can do whatever the fuck he wants.
But you guys
I'm young.
You guys wake up in the morning to the Vistani getting everything packed up. You know, when you wake up, you see that they've kind of like they're pretty respectful campers. You know, like the bonfire pit that they made is like gone, and they've essentially left it as it probably was, left the land as it probably was when they showed up. And they get all their caravans packed up, and it's become pretty clear at this point that each of the caravans carries different things, but as well like it's essentially their like families are each family of these Vistani are like one of the carts, and Stanimir seems to be driving the lead cart of the caravan, and he has a few of like the stray, like the big burly guy that you bumped into off the ship is on his caravan, as well as a younger Vistani woman who seems to have kind of a sharp eye, and then one of the children seems to not have any parents, and it's surprisingly not the devil child, but there's like a little scrawny little kid that doesn't seem to have any parents, since he seems to travel in Stanimir's cart as well. But they tell you guys that you can ride in any cart that you choose. Anyone's more than happy to make room for you in the travel for the next 20 days that you guys will be heading up into the Heartvale to meet their lord.
Is Nuru less jingly now?
You probably managed to make yourself less jingly with the cloth that the Vistani woman provided you. You know, I imagine you probably end up eventually like getting some stuff out of your main backpack and like putting your large sack of coins like in the center somewhere or something, and kind of padding around it with stuff so it like doesn't allow the coins to move so much or whatever. And then you have places to like stick your things if you need to in the carts now as you're traveling. But yeah, I mean, you could even just leave your pack with your coin in one of the carts. Just depends on how secure you feel about, you know, leaving it unattended. Leaving it unattended.
It's not unintended.
As they're finishing packing up the camp, you see Nice Snow coming up towards the caravan procession as they're all getting their final, all their final stuff prepared to leave. You see her alone coming up the road, looking kind of peckish, probably.
Yeah, yes, actually, you can see her, and the weird thing is that she's literally glowing. Like, so I'm just gonna pull this up. Thaumaturgy. Yeah. So basically, she has the light on her, and she's like basically, it sort of looks like the sun's like shining off of her in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. I'm not sure if this is doing the exact same thing. Yeah. Door window, cards playing the bright. Change color. No, it's not the right one. Oh, she cast light on herself then.
It's probably like minor illusion, or
I think he was thinking of prestidigitation.
Yeah, I was mixing those two up.
I do as well.
So yeah, but she looks a little bit lighter than normal, even though she's disheveled. Like her hair is tossed over to one side. She has fur like randomly strewn about her.
You look like you had a fun night.
The bear folk know how to party. And just keeps walking.
What?
And I think actually before Nice Know, before you guys got like too wasted at the inn, um Bellaril pulled something from inside of his clothing, and he said, "I've been holding on to this for a long time. Um, I perhaps should have given it back to you earlier, but it was the only other thing that was with you in the crater when we found you. And it is a small iron symbol of Torm. Or Tyr, sorry."
And she picks it up and she looks very grim at it. And he sees like her face contort into this angry grimace at it as she goes to reach and pick it up.
Yeah, he lets it go. He's like put it on a chain and he lets it go, and he looks a little guilty, and he says, you know, the day we found you, I kind of put it away and forgot about it for a long time, and I've been meaning to give it to you, and I think I should have done it earlier, but since you will be leaving us, I thought now would be better late than never.
And she does the like chin stroke thing again and says, "Thank you." And she's like, "My anger is not with you. It's with this one."
And no, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And this was last night, right?
Yeah, the day before. Yeah.
Okay.
Just something I thought of at the last minute, kind of.
Yeah. And as she touches it, underneath of it, basically a like light rim comes up and then goes down and forms a box that expands downwards, and out of it comes a tome. And she's like, and she drops it down and walks away from it for a while. Basically, the same one she woke up with. The next day.
Gotcha. Yeah, but you guys see Nice Snow wandering up towards the Vistani camp. Stanimir, as he's adjusting the burdles and the reins of his horse that is pulling his cart. All the carts have these large, very large draft horses with these big, thick, powerful bodies and these big, large hooves. And Stanimir says, calls out as he sees you approaching the camp as they're preparing to leave, and he says, "Ah, I thought we had lost one of you. I'm glad to see you this morning. Pick any cart you choose to ride upon. We leave shortly."
She'll pick whichever one looks the cleanest.
The one that looks the cleanest would be the cart with the devil child.
She grows even more suspicious. But she will pick a different cart.
Okay. Yeah, as you approach and you're appraising the carts to see which one's the cleanest, you see the little girl sitting on the back of hers, kind of dangling her legs, and she looks at you and tilts her head and kind of grins at you and waves, and then you like go, okay, well, maybe the second cleanest. And you hear what other carts did you guys? So there's 6 carts essentially. Stanimir drives in the lead. and then there's 5 carts behind that essentially. The cart directly behind Standimir, I think, probably carries like a small family, like a husband and a wife with one of the children, and then maybe like the husband's brother or something like that, and they have like the cart that's filled with all the ale and stuff and the wine. Um, and it just kind of goes back like that, and they're all kind of little families of Vistani that man the wagons, but like just more like what wagon would you guys choose? Would you try to like ride together, or would you pick just wagons at random?
I would pick whatever cart Bob is on.
Who was Bob again?
Halfling. Who?
The guy who
Oh,
invited him?
yeah. Okay, gotcha.
You know,
yeah.
the Australian.
Strangely, no, I guess I have to leave him there. Yeah, Bob's there, I guess. Damn it. And
Yeah.
actually, Bob is probably on Stanimir's cart, since he's
Maybe I'd
not.
jump on that
Yeah,
one.
since he's a halfling, so he's probably with the strays, the Vistani strays in Stanimir's cart. So you're up front, and Stanimir's probably pretty happy about that. Actually, he would probably ask you to ride up front with him on the bench, so he could converse with you while you travel the roads. What about you, Nuru?
What?
What about Nuru? What cart would Nuru choose? A random cart, or a cart with one of the other adventurers, or?
Which one has the most children on it? Or at least the kids that you were interacting with them.
Yeah. So
I wonder
the
if any of them would ask him to ride with them.
little blonde boy definitely would. The one who initially started talking with you the most, and that family does have a second child who's more like a toddler, like probably like 3 years old. Like he can walk and say a few words and stuff, and run around and play. But so that one would probably have the most children with the little blonde boy.
He would probably go with that one, but he might jump around a bit too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be like. This is more just for as you're leaving or heading out or whatever. Like you're not confined to that cart once you choose one or anything like that, by any means. Yeah.
You pick a cart, you're chained.
Yeah. They load you into the back and strap you to the floorboards and begin to mercilessly torture you. Julong, they begin to pull out your feathers one by one.
You are ours now. Welcome to the family.
Terrible.
What about Julong? Where does Julong ride?
Or
Or do you just kind of like fly above as they go, or?
Nah, he's gonna like whichever cart has the best spot to perch on. He's just gonna like do that bird sit thing.
Sure.
When they perch on a thing.
So I mean, the best one would probably just be the front or the back cart. They're all of pretty similar shape and size, so the front or the back would give you the best vantage point, just simply on the road and your surroundings.
The back, then.
Sure.
Sits on the back just waiting for roadkill.
Hits the caboose. Cool.
Yeah! Something gets hit in the front, and then eventually it comes up to the back, and it's like, ooh, bones!
So obviously I'm not going to like tediously go through 20 days of traveling.
Time skip.
But you guys do leave Neverwinter here the day after Shield Meet. And Stanimir and his Vistani travel up the road along the Neverwood to the city of Luskan. The city of Luskan is fairly well known for their Smithing work. A lot of weapon and armor gets made up in Luskin. Um, a lot of that having to do with being near the spine of the world. So they just have a lot of access up there in Luskin, and they spend essentially a day in Luskin. Stanimir does some trading, talks to a few people, and the Vistani always. It seems clear even after your first stop. The Vistani never pull their caravan into town and stop. Like they stop well outside of town and walk in essentially in small groups. Um, After they're finished in Luskin, that would essentially be like half the journey or like 46% of the journey. So like during that 10-day, would you guys like interact with each other at all? Would you talk to each other on the road or any of the Vistani or anything like that for that 10 days? Like what would you be doing for that 10 days of time? Starting
Noticing
with
that Maestro also knows the light cantrip, I show her the chicken trick.
it's a new favorite and soon to become a classic with the Vistani.
And I say, this is how you interact with people.
And she gives a like very curious expression, and then she will cast a light cantrip on the chicken as well, so it's like twice as bright.
Oh.
I clap.
Just sort of.
When do we get the flashing shoes?
Soon.
The Faerun lights. I don't even know what you would call them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then she will also, you see her use both her hands and shooting out of her little fingertips. She's sort of guiding them around like she's just commanding them with her fingers. She's actually going to dancing lights around the chicken. So not only is the chicken glowing, it's also getting surrounded by a bunch of like little dancing lights. that are,
After
like-
seeing that, I
So,
screamed
Is
glitter
it like a
bomb.
disco ball?
Yeah, basically it's a disco chicken now.
And then
Oh.
I screamed glitter bomb.
Naru's going to sit there, a chicken leg in his hands, staring at them with the. Just. Have you not ever. Were you ever taught not to play with your food?
They're not food. They give them eggs. They're not food.
Yeah, they don't. The Vistani don't seem to eat the chicken. They're more like pets essentially, and
I thought you meant like a fucking chicken that was cooked.
So just
Technicality.
a bunch of light blowing off of it, covered in purple glitter,
Yeah.
with dancing lights around it.
I ordained this the holy chicken.
There's probably even like a chicken or a rooster like up on top of one of the carts, like next to Julong at some point. Like trying to interact with Julong. Like, hey, this is a big bird.
Naru's going to spend some time scaling the caravans, I think, because it's the thing he can climb, and he likes climbing, being in high places.
Yeah, for sure. So you probably end up bumping into Julong fairly often.
And there might be some holes now poked into the caravan.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
guessing it's hard.
Little pinprick claw marks.
Yeah, and the Vistani are never like. I mean, there is some like canvas on a couple of the carts. A few of them are, or most of them are like actually entirely made of wood, and so like they can kind of unfold a little bit when they stop. But I mean, yeah, you definitely leave some like claw marks in some of the old wood of the caravans and stuff like that.
He might ask if, like some of them, if they mind if he uses a section of wood for a scratching post to keep his claws sharp.
would you ask, or would you just like pick a place that you think nobody would notice and occasionally go?
Pick a place. I would definitely
Okay, yeah. So like on the inside of one of the wagon wheels, essentially, there's like all this scratch marks from Nuru on times that they stop, and you sneak off and go keep your claws well manicured and sharp. Um, and after they leave Luskin, they make their way uh, up along the road, along the river, towards Mirabar, where which is a dwarven city. It's underground, essentially, for the most part, and may even be where your mentor Ricky has family, or may even have been from. The
Probably been from less family.
Yeah, only a few of the Vistani go down into the city. Um, uh, and then, so this Lurkwood here is in like my version of Faerun. It's actually called the Heart Vale. Um, I just haven't changed it on the map. I just kind of uploaded this map randomly, but this portion of the world is where like another character from one of my long running campaigns is from. So like we just kind of reskinned that portion of the map for his whole history and family and stuff. So it's called the Heart Vale. And so after you guys stop in Mirabar, you make it to the edge of this sprawling wood, and Stanimir says, "Welcome to the Heartvale. Soon we will meet our lord." And so essentially another like 10 days has gone by, and after a night of camping,
Where are we again?
right, right up in here,
Like Lurkwood.
Lurkwood, yeah, which is
Okay.
like the heart is called the Heartvale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as you guys are traveling on essentially like your 21st day of travel, and you start making your way into the Heartvale, early on that 21st day in the morning, as the Vistani have packed up the camp and you guys are heading through the narrow road into the woods, sorry, I lost one of my pages. A dense fog begins to kind of roll in to the woods around the caravan. It kind of presses in close, coming to the edge of the woods and really only leaving the road exposed for the most part. And then eventually, as you guys continue along the road, the mist totally envelops the caravan. Do you guys react to this in any way, or?
I'm still sitting next to Leader Boy, so I just look at him, and if he seems to not pay it any mind, I guess I don't pay it any mind.
Sure.
How,
Yeah.
how suddenly did this fog roll in?
Matter of minutes.
Matter of minutes?
Yeah.
Could it be said that Nuru, for the last leg of the journey, moved up to the front caravan
Sure.
as well? Like, he will ask if this is normal.
Yes. So Stanimir says, Stanimir says, the Heart Vale can be quite misty. The people that live here have become quite superstitious. They believe that it's the sadness of the Lord that has caused these woods to become haunted. But pay it no mind. The mists are not dangerous. And eventually you come through the mist, and it kind of becomes a little less thick, and you kind of look off the side of the cart, and the roads have become like very bumpy. The carts are hitting these big divots and ruts, and it's becoming kind of like a bumpy road. And you look down over the side of the carts and you see black pools of water standing like dark mirrors in and around the muddy roadway. And suddenly, out of the mists now, there are these giant evergreen trees that loom on both sides of the road, their branches clawing at the mist behind you. And suddenly, Stanimir's cart hits one of these big ruts or divots, and you hear a groan and then a snap, and one of the front wagon wheels, probably the one that you've been clawing at, Nuru, breaks and halts all the procession of carts behind you. And you look up ahead, you hear Stanimir curse under his breath, and you look up ahead and you see this, in the distance, two sets of large stone gates, and fog is kind of spilling out of the forest to swallow up the road behind you as the caravan kind of stops. And ahead, jutting from the impenetrable woods on either side of you, are these high stone buttresses looming gray in the fog. And upon them are huge iron gates that hang on the stonework. Dew clings with cold tenacity. Even at this distance, you can see to its rusted bars. And two headless statues of armed guardians flank the gate. The heads of the statues are now lying among the weeds and ferns of the forest floor. And these large stone pillars greet you with only silence. And that is where we'll end our session for this week.
One question.
Right.
Are the claw marks now visible?
Yeah, the wheels kind of like rolled off into like the
Trees.
the trees or the heather or whatever, and there's like all these scratch marks on the inner portion of the wheel that's snapped off. And Stanimir says, well, that was unexpected. This will take us a few hours to fix. Up ahead, you will come across a small town, a village called Barovia. You can go on ahead, and once we get this wagon wheel fixed, we will catch up with you if you like. And you look up at these two large stone pillars of these armed guards towering high above your heads, with these gates kind of cracked open before you. Yeah, that's where we'll stop for Curse of Strahd this week.
Cool.
Nice.
Thank you for attending session 2 of the game. I'll stop stop streaming now. So if anybody's watching, I haven't even checked the chat or anything. So if anybody's watching, thanks for tuning in. And now we're just